The 2018 general elections. The issues that matter. The people that matter. This is Straight Talk with Vijay Narayan.
Pulavinaka, good evening. I'm Vijay Narayan and we continue on our journey. A special talk back for the general elections 2018. November 14th is the date when majority of the people go out to cast their vote and elect a government. Now, as far as Straight Talk is concerned, we can confirm to you that tonight we have SODELPA leader Mr. Sitiveni Rabuka. Then we take a break and then we come back next Monday when we'll have the National Federation Party leader Professor Biman Prasad next Monday night at 7 p.m. Then on Straight Talk on next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Fiji First General Secretary Mr. Ayaz Sayed Kayum. On Wednesday night we have the Unity Fiji Party leader Savenatha Narumbe, 7 p.m. next Wednesday, and next Thursday night at 7 p.m. we have Ayaz Sayed Kayum and Professor Biman Prasad together on the talkback at 7 p.m. Next Thursday night. We also have spoken to Mr. Rabuka and he said we will be confirming the dates. He is ready to come for talkbacks with Vorenge Bainimarama, the Fiji First leader. He's also ready to come for talkbacks with NFP leader Professor Biman Prasad. So we will be confirming the dates for you before November 12th when the blackout period starts. So you will be getting more of Straight Talk and more details coming to you. So tonight, on behalf of our listeners on VTFM and also our viewers on Fiji Village Facebook, Mr. Rabuka, good evening and thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
Vinaka Vijay, Bulavinaka, and Bulavinaka to your listeners.
Now, the number to call if you have any questions is 3314766, 3314766, and we will also be fielding your questions to Mr. Rabuka. So please do call if you have any questions that you want to ask the SODELPA leader, Mr. Sitiveni Rabuka. Now, getting straight into it, Mr. Rabuka, we definitely have an issue at this point in time. We won't go into the court case because the matter is before the courts and the judgment will be at 10:30 a.m. next Friday. However, there is an issue definitely for voters. You being an experienced politician, you know that leadership of a party is always a key factor. Can you please explain the plans for SODELPA leadership and the need to change the SODELPA constitution to have a deputy leader that was done a few weeks ago?
Thank you very much, Vijay. As you know, SODELPA had been running as the SDL party. Because of the change in the Electoral Act and regulations, they could not continue as SDL, Songsong Jovat and Leoni Vanua. They had to register an English name and adopted the Social Democratic Liberal Party of Fiji. It retains the first letters of the original party, SDL, but written in full to embrace those political ideologies of socialism, democracy, and liberalism. Because of that, most of the structures of the party, the original party, remained. And there was no such person as a deputy party leader. However, when they went into the 2014 general elections, there was still no need for a deputy party leader. They had not anticipated a loss. They had gone into the election fighting for a win. When they didn't, and there was the leadership issue in Parliament about who was to lead the party in Parliament, to be the parliamentary leader, they found out that It was okay to have Rotemumu Kepa as a party leader and still have the party president, Ratu Nengama Lalambalavu. No deputy leader. And we went into the preparations for this coming general election, maintaining those two positions. And when I was charged, we found out that there could be a need for us to have someone ready to take over should I be disqualified from standing. That's the issue came up in the general meeting that was held in Vitongo at the end of June.
But that was not adopted there.
No, it was not. The motion came up for a deputy leader.
It was defeated.
It was not defeated. It was a point of order. It was pointed out that there is no such thing as a deputy leader, and the constitution had to be changed to allow for the appointment of a deputy leader. And that's how we have arrived at the situation we're in.
You couldn't change it there and then in Vitongo with the amendment moved at that time?
No, because it would have contravened the standing regulations regarding general meetings. We had to publicize the agenda 21 days before the meeting, and that had not been done. And the motion was a motion from the floor without notice, so it had to be dealt with according to the Constitution. It had to be taken back for the management board to deal with it and be brought up at a special general meeting for the amendment to the Constitution.
You're on Straight Talk on VTFM. Our guest tonight is SODELPA leader, Mr. Sitiveni Rabuka. You can call with your questions as well on 3314-766. Watch us live on Facebook on Fiji Village. Now, Mr. Rabuka, if it does happen that you get disqualified based on the court decision, will you definitely lose your leadership of SODELPA? What is the plan?
I do not automatically lose the leadership. However, I will not be able to lead the party into the general elections, in which case there is a need for a second in command, so to speak, someone to continue the drive towards the elections and be in a position to take over the parliamentary group.
So you will remain in some sort of capacity in SODELPA?
I could remain as a party leader and continue to work with the party leadership, in the campaign battle for the general elections.
Would it be right to have a party leader outside Parliament if it does happen, and another leader who is expected to be in Parliament?
No, we've gone this far after you asked me whether I will remain as party leader. I may not be eligible to be party leader. However, I will be still available to continue and work with the party. Automatically, the party leadership will go to the next best person. That is why we amended the Constitution to appoint, to have such a person ready or have the provisions in the Constitution to be able to automatically go for that, pending a substantive decision being made by the management board.
Now, when will the deputy leader be appointed?
At the moment, there is no need to appoint one. The provisions are there in the Constitution for one to be appointed according to the provisions of the Constitution.
And then I believe that the management board will make the appointment?
In the meantime, the party president can continue and have in the absence of the proper appointment of the deputy leader and acting leader, the party president continues the leadership, not necessarily in the role of deputy leader, but as party president, taking on the role of party leadership as a party leader.
Is there a possibility that Ratu Nengama will lead the SODELPA candidates into the elections?
That could be, it is a possibility, but we have time to, if the management board so wishes, they can sit to appoint or regularize the appointment of a deputy leader.
Do you have time?
Yes, we have time.
Only a few weeks to go for general
Correct.
elections.
We have, according to our constitution, we can call the management board, and they can make that decision.
Now, is Rote Mumukepa also in the mix for taking back the leadership?
She is, and everybody in the party is eligible to run for that office.
SODELPA leader Mr. Sitiveni Rabuka, they are clarifying the issue about leadership still. Decision yet to be made based on how things play out according to the court case. A deputy leader not appointed. There could be a possibility, maybe even Ratu Nengama Lalambalavu taking the SODELPA candidates to the 2018 general elections. However, that will be confirmed by the party as they get nearer to those decisions. Now, I've got a call from Naitasiri. Epeli is calling from Naitasiri. Good evening, Epeli. Well, Epeli is asking, what is the first thing Rabuka will target when he forms government?
Well, first of all, I will have to have my cabinet lineup. That's the first thing you do when you get into government. You form a cabinet, and the cabinet gets into its first meeting, where you review the party manifesto against what is on the ground, work that out with the constitution that we are already into and running with, the budget that we are running with, and make sure that the allocations to the ministries at that stage can sustain the first few months of cabinet leadership.
What's the first thing you'll do after you get cabinet all set up?
Appoint cabinet. Well, first thing is appoint cabinet. And then we are a leadership that listens. I will call up my cabinet meeting ministers and say, look, this is the new government.
What's the first change that you think, as a former prime minister, that you think should happen?
The face of government will change. The policies will go along with what we have in mind. And some of those continue what Fiji First has at the moment. There's no need to make breaks. There's no need to make sudden changes. They'll have to be regular and gradual changes in the direction we're going.
The number to call is 3314766. You can also text in your question. Epeli from Naitasiri, thank you for texting in your question. 3314766 is the number to also ask questions. And our guest on Straight Talk tonight is SODELPA leader Mr. Sitiveni Rabuka. Now, Mr. Rabuka, you are already a person on the Prime Minister's pension. Why have you made a comeback into politics?
Well, I was asked to come back, and I know I have something to offer. I can still serve the people of Fiji, and when I was asked to be available to become party leader, I obliged. First of all, I had thought about just enjoying my retirement, but I know I'm fit enough, I'm strong enough, I'm capable enough to contribute to the leadership of Fiji.
There was a bit of a tussle when the leadership vote was being taken, because Rote Mumu was leader, and there were meetings. I remember for quite some time at the FTA hall. Even you were seen going in and out. We were covering that until when the vote was taken, when you became leader. Have you managed to resolve all those issues?
I didn't know what the issues were. I was not involved in the voting. I was totally out until I was told to come in after they had counted the votes.
Now, James from Lautoka has got a question. Good evening, James.
Good evening. My question to Mr. Rabuka is, what was the reason for the collapse of the National Bank of Fiji?
The
Mr.
collapse
Rabuka.
of the National Bank of Fiji was because too many people owed so much money, and many of them didn't have the collaterals with the bank to back up their loans, and some of them didn't have enough repayments to make those loans workable.
How did we get into the situation? You were the Prime Minister at the time. How did we get into the situation?
It had been a festering problem. It started well before 1987 and well before 1992, definitely. So the bank was running into a lot of difficulties even before 87 and 92 when I took over as Prime Minister in 92. So there are a lot of people out there who know more, know better. I was only asked to fix it, and we fixed it by making available $200 million to bail out the bank and split it into two, the good bank or the personal bank and the asset management. Yes.
Just a question on that, because I was reading about it by a book written by an independent group of USP lecturers where they made an assessment and other things have been written about it. A lot has been said about the collapse of the National Bank of Fiji. According to the previous budgets, the government took a loan of $209 million, as you've confirmed just now, to bail out NBF. I believe it was 1995, 1996, averaging interest rates of 7 to 8%, which comes to about $16 million annually. On interest alone, taxpayers paid $16 million annually, and NBF has cost taxpayers with interest about $300 million to date. Now, what can you say about the collapse, and how did you deal with it? You know that $209 million in relative terms was a lot of money at the time, and you said that it was happening before your time. And when did you manage to do something about it? How long were you in government, and then you decided you have to do something about it?
It had been ongoing. I mean, it had started before our time, and it came to the fore in 1995 after a complaint was received from the Honorable Jairam Reddy, the then leader of the opposition, and we cooperated with that, and the investigation was carried out, and I have the report here.
Okay. Now, in relation to the money that we are still paying for, as a former Prime Minister, as the Prime Minister at the time, what do you have to say about that?
Some of the money was recovered from the sale of assets. Some of the people lost their assets, and but they were borrowing more than what their assets had to offer with the asset management. When the asset management people came in and they sold the assets to recover parts of the loaned money, that reduced the 200 million. So those that had gone and looked at that should have been more diligent and found out exactly how much was the residue of the 200 million left as.
But you had taken a loan of 209 million.
Yes.
Which is still being paid for at the moment.
I do not know that.
According to the budget, it's still being paid for.
Well, that's their budget. So I don't know how much of that is still being paid right now.
It was 16 million. The interest alone is $16 million a year, which we are still paying for.
Yes. Well, that is something that had to be done. It was had to be a clinical operation, and in like every surgical operation that you carry out, there is bound to be blood.
There were comments made it's all water under the bridge at the time.
It is water under the bridge. We've learned from it.
A lot of water under the bridge.
A lot of water. But and a lot of people out there who are smiling away, probably
Do you
hiding.
know some people who are still there who took advantage of it?
I have the full list here.
Why nothing was done about it?
They were taken to court. Some of them were
How
penalized.
many people were taken to court?
I do not know. That's a matter for the police and the prosecution. It's not a political issue.
You were the Prime Minister at the time. Did you know who were involved and how many people should have been taken to task?
No, that is a clear clear separation between the executive, that's my role,
So you just
the judiciary.
You just said, I won't deal with this, although you're taking a loan of $209 million, which the taxpayers will still be paying in 2018?
No, that's not part of the executive. The executive is to make the executive decision, bail out the bank or clean it up. And it's up to the police and the court and the investigators to carry on with their own.
Mr. Rabuka, the other issue, because the question has been asked about NBF, is the DPP at the time, and you would have read up about that as well, Nazat Shamim, who had said that she was not given enough support and expertise to fully prosecute the NBF cases, and that budgeting was an issue at the time by the government, and she ran into a lot of challenges to try to get that. She has been on the records saying that. There's been articles written about that. Why was no support given, or lack of support given, knowing that they were handling one major issue, the first time ever in Fiji, with so much money being written off, an actual bank collapsing, and not much prosecution done?
As I said, that is outside the ambit of the executive role. That should be done by the prosecutor and the court. And you must have a clear understanding of the separation of powers.
But what the office definitely is, the budget is allocated through the government, the
Correct.
office of the DPP, and the DPP at the time has said on the record that she did not get what she wanted, and they were caught with such a big case where they needed the expertise, but they didn't have the support. Do you believe that more could have been done, or you just said, we are the executive, we can't get into that?
No, we cooperated. In fact, there was a sudden increase and rise in the technology or technological support given to the police at the time. And we had to run crash courses on how to manage those new machines. So we did what we could.
But people were out of their depth?
No, some of them were, but they had asked, the commissioner at the time asked for expertise, which he was granted.
And the office of the DPP, who's the DPP at the time, saying she did not get what she wanted?
I don't know whether she had asked her minister responsible for her department and what sort of support she asked for.
Now we've got another question. Tui from Lambasa asking Mr. Rabuka a question.
Mr. Rabuka, being a SODELPA party, you look after Fijian interests. We understand that you have a land in Valabala, the Konrove, and you sold it to the Chinese. What do you have to say to that?
Vinaka, I sold it to a buyer. He's a breeder, livestock breeder in Australia. And I felt that he was coming in to help our livestock industry in Fiji. And I agreed with the agent who came. I didn't know who the buyer was. I still do not know. I've never seen him. So it was a personal, a person, not China, not a Chinese institution.
Thank you very much, Tui from Lambasa. Namish from Kandavu is asking another question. Good evening.
You assure us that what sort of job security will have when your government comes in?
Job security, if you come into government.
Well, one thing we would like to bring back is the career concept of work in government, where someone can come in at the lower end of a profession and look forward to retiring within that ministry or in a similar employment or a similar job in the course of his or her career, from recruitment or from enlistment to retirement.
SODELPA leader Mr. Sitiveni Rabuka is our guest on Straight Talk tonight. You can call in with your questions on 3314766. Penyoni from Navua, good evening.
If Rabuka going to take over the government, he will follow this constitution or go back to the 1997 constitution?
We will have to go along with the 2013 constitution. The 2013 constitution has stipulated that it cannot be changed apart from the provisions of the constitution, and that is to have a set number of votes in parliament and a set number of voters outside of parliament to be able to change the constitution. However, I feel that there is a high court ruling on the purported abrogation of the 1997 constitution. We cannot go automatically from this 2013 constitution into back into the 1997 constitution. There are legal provisions to be followed, and as well as parliamentary and constitutional provisions.
SODELPA leader Mr. Sitiveni Rabuka, before we go on a break, Mr. Rabuka, just in relation to NBF, the whole of Fiji, a lot of people are listening. From your point of view as former Prime Minister and the Prime Minister at the time, a lot has been said about NBF, and you know during these campaign meetings a lot has been said. You have been blamed for the NBF collapse and the money. You have a list with you in relation to who may be involved, still running around or hiding, as you termed it. What do you have to say to the people of Fiji?
Well, all I can say to the people of Fiji is that we had to bite the bullet. We had to clean it up. It started before our time. It emerged during our leadership, and we were responsible enough to say, okay, it's going to be hard, it's going to be painful, but it's got to be done. So I told the Minister of Finance that morning after the briefing from Mr. Lionel Yee, who was chairman of NBF, look, what you have recommended can be done. Looks like it's painful, but looks like the only practical and practicable way of solving this issue. I told the Minister of Finance at the time, Minister, can we find $200 million? He said, yes, we can find it. I said, please find it. Let's clean this thing up.
And you found it out. You found the money through loans.
We found the money, first of all, by reallocation. We had some movement of funds within the budget, and that was how we initially dealt with it.
Speaking on like at a national level, on a country level, with $209 million taken at the time, if we didn't have the collapse, where else, from your assessment, could the money have been used?
Well, a lot of...
How did Fiji lose out?
We lost out on infrastructure development. We lost out on a lot of the, mostly capital works. They could have been put to capital works or not used at all, just staying out there, and we would not be paying...
Of the registered voters in a referendum. Now, are you planning to change the constitution?
There is no need to immediately change the constitution. It is a constitution that places all the powers in the hands of government, and we're going to be the government, and we will enjoy all the powers that are given to us by that constitution.
So you're happy with the constitution?
I'm not happy with the constitution. It's not the people's constitution. It's not been ratified by the people. It's been forced down on the people. And it got rid of a constitution, the constitution of the people. We, the people of Fiji, etc., 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 gave ourselves that constitution of 1997. Although they say the same, they have the same words in the 2013 constitution, we, the people, have not ratified it in our parliament, the assembly of the people, which is parliament.
So you are contesting under a constitution that you do not accept?
I am contesting under a constitution that I do not agree with. It's the only way to make any changes. If we need to have the changes done or made, it'll be through Parliament, the Parliament of Fiji.
But you cannot make changes just with Parliament of Fiji. You'll have to go to the registered voters.
Correct.
And that's what you'll do.
That will be the process.
Now, what is your stand on, there's some things in the Constitution where SODELPA has said that they're unhappy with, and there've been articles written about it as well. So you are on Straight Talk. Let's talk about that in relation to the common name Fijian.
Fijian, I've always, I have my own views in that we had common citizenry in the 1997 Constitution, but we were called different names. They're now saying that common citizenry is embraced by the common name. We have a common name. We've always had a common citizenry. There was no need for us to have a common name.
What is the common name that we had before that?
We were all Fiji citizens.
Fiji citizens. So from your point of view, from SODELPA's point of view, you're fine with Fiji citizens for
Yes.
all?
Yes.
And Fijian just for who?
For the it's okay.
It's okay. So if you are so passionate about that, you hold that strongly, would that be one of the things you will definitely change?
No, there's no need to change, because if we change it, we start again. If we continue, more people will embrace the name Fijian, and it'll be a non-issue in time.
So will you change, or will you continue?
We will
in the
not
form?
change. We will not change.
So you'll continue and expect people to just accept?
Yes, those of us who were brought up in the era where I was known as a Fijian, you were known as an Indian, and you were a proud Indian because you have your own tradition, you have your own religion, you have your own culture. Why should I force my name onto you?
The question is, and that has also come up, a person born in Fiji is definitely not an Indian, because an Indian is born in India.
No, that's not right.
That's according to you.
No. An Indian is an Indian.
So
Who is
never
an-
mind where the person is born. For example, if an Indian person, we would say, according to you, is born in Australia, what are they called?
They are Australians. But who is an Australian?
Well, I'm asking then why, if someone is born in Fiji, cannot be called a Fijian?
Because a Fijian is already the name given to
That
the
is reserved.
indigenous people of Fiji.
So we cannot have something like Australia. If you're born in Australia, you're an Australian.
They are Australian in the sense that they were born there. You know,
Citizens.
They're citizens, Australian citizens. You go and ask who do we have? Perelli in Sydney. What are you? I'm a citizen. What are you? I'm a citizen of Australia. You Australian or Fijian? No, I'm still Fijian.
There's the issue also. One is citizenship.
Yes.
One is nationality.
Yes.
And one is ethnicity.
Yes.
So, do you believe that there's a difference between nationality and ethnicity?
Yes.
What is the difference?
The difference is ethnicity.
Yeah. So
I'm an ethnic
let's
Fijian.
look at nationality. So what is nationality?
We're both nationals of Fiji. We're both citizens of Fiji.
And as nationals of Fiji, what should be known as, according to SODELPA and according to you as the leader of SODELPA?
I was comfortable with all Fiji citizens. We have what I'm talking about now is when we had a constitution where we had representation according to ethnicity.
That's right.
Yes. Now we've moved out of that and we have adopted the Fijian. Why don't we go along? And more people will
No, but I
forget.
still want to understand, because as leader of SODELPA, and this is people definitely asking, wanting to know, you have said you will not make the change. You will go with Fijian because the previous times, or people from way back, they were used to that categorization.
Yes.
So for you now, nationality is Fijian,
Yes.
ethnicity is Itoke, Indo-Fijian. Are you fine with that?
I'm fine with that.
So you are fine with that?
Yes.
So you will not change?
No.
What about your party? How do they feel about that?
There are some members of the party that do not agree with that, and I do not agree with them, and we disagree within the party.
So what is your stand?
My stand is that Fijian is fine
For all.
for all.
For everyone born in Fiji.
Correct.
Why is it fine now?
It's fine. It was fine from 1987. If you look at the headline,
It wasn't fine in 1987,
in
Mr. Rabuka.
1987. If you look at the headline, an article written by Mesaka Koroi, you will find that I proposed Fijian for all.
I remember you had said a few times Fiji Islanders.
No, the Fijian word Fijian, I started.
But you brought it in 1997 and
That
it
was-
didn't have it.
No, it was late.
1997 Constitution didn't have a common name for all as Fijian.
In 1997, we were still going into Parliament under those ethnic representation.
So you didn't want to touch that?
No,
Why not?
because it was a personal view in 1987.
You thought everybody wouldn't back you?
I knew they would not agree with me because
So it was a political decision?
the political decision was to go for continuing with our ethnic representation.
Race-based voting?
And race-based voting, and making allowance for a gradual move towards common role.
We were far from it because there were only 20 open seats and there were 71 seats in Parliament back then.
Well, there was a move from nothing.
So you're taking one step at a time?
Yes.
And how many steps you would have taken, then you would have come to open seats for all?
Those are generational changes. You cannot rush generational changes.
Do you believe the time is right now, or we've had one in
We've only
2014?
had one generation between then and now.
Now, that's what I'm asking. Do you believe the time is right now?
No,
or
let it evolve.
still not right at the
Let
moment?
it evolve.
So it's still not right at the
It
moment?
is still not right. Let it revolve. If you want to change it too quickly, it becomes a revolution. We don't want a revolution. We want evolution.
But it has been changed already, so
Yeah,
how do you
but
deal with
we're into that now. So keep going.
keep going.
Keep evolving.
SODELPA leader Mr. Sitiveni Rabuka making his stand very clear on the common name Fijian, and as he said, he's got differences in the party about the issue, but he's made the stand clear. He believes that the name should stay. Now, in relation to secular state, what is your view on Fiji being a secular state? The Prime Minister had a campaign meeting last night, and he said in that campaign meeting in Sakotha that he watched a video of a SODELPA group saying that they want to make Fiji a Christian state. What's SODELPA's stand on this issue?
Fiji is a Christian state.
Sorry?
Fijian is a Christian state.
Fiji is a Christian state?
Yes.
It's not in the constitution?
No, but we are.
So it's just in the belief?
No, it's in our laws.
It's in our laws?
Yes,
Which
our laws are based on Christian values. And we have basically a 6 working day week, and we still have a Sabbath or a day of rest.
There's a lot of people still work on Sundays.
Well, that's by choice because Christianity involves a compassionate leadership. We understand. We do not impose our values on others.
So you believe Fiji is a Christian state?
Yes.
Now, but the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land,
Yes.
and even in the 1997 Constitution, it didn't state clearly that Fiji is a Christian state. It says Fiji is a secular state, and the definition of it is also in the Constitution, where the definition is you can all practice your own religions,
Correct.
and no one religion should be preferred over another. So what
Correct.
do you say about that?
I say that is Christianity.
Which means that, no, but it says that no one religion should be preferred over another,
That is Christianity.
according to you.
Yes.
So will you bring in a section in the Constitution which says that Fiji should be a Christian state?
No, there's no need to say that it is a secular state.
There is a group going around, the video is going around that Fiji will be a Christian state.
I do
That
not see.
SODELPA will make Fiji a Christian state.
There is nothing magical about making Fiji a Christian state constitutionally. It is how the people act, how the people react, how the people interact with each other. And at the moment, our laws are based on English laws, which were based on the biblical laws of the Ten Commandments. That is why I say, and I maintain, that Fiji is a Christian state.
So you are happy with the 2013 Constitution stating that Fiji is a secular state?
No,
There's
I'm
no there's no, according to the constitution, there's no preference of one religion over another. You are fine with that?
Why say it when we have that anyway?
No,
Why
I'm
say-
asking you, are you fine with what's in the constitution at the moment, Mr. Rabuka?
At the moment, the secularism that we put in brings in restrictions, but it also gives me a lot of leeway to promote my religion.
There's
On a
freedom
personal-
of religion.
Yes.
There's a section in the Bill of Rights,
Yes,
freedom
correct.
of religion.
Correct.
So I'm just asking you the question whether you are happy with that, and as a leader of a political party who's going into elections and wanting to form government to lead the people of Fiji. Of course, the people of Fiji would want clarification on that, whether you are happy with what's in the constitution about secular state.
Yeah, being a seasoned interviewer and media personnel, why do you want to use the word happy? Happy is an emotion. Happiness is an emotion. When you're in national leadership, happiness got nothing to do with it. You got to be objective about what you do for the nation and its people.
So I'm asking you, are you?
And I'm telling you
Are
that
you-
your choice of words is very poor.
Well, are you supportive of the current term, which is in the constitution?
I do not support the imposition of secularism because it is imposing. All the other constitutions have been silent on Christianity. We've not imposed it constitutionally.
I'm going back to my question, Mr. Rabuka, because it was in relation to a group saying that
Go and ask the group.
SODELPA will make Fiji
Go
a
and
Christian
ask the group.
state.
That is that's not an issue. That's not an issue with SODELPA.
As leader of SODELPA,
Yeah, it is
can
not,
you please
it's not
clarify
it's
to
not
the people?
It is not a SODELPA manifesto issue. So
It is not a SODELPA
it is
manifesto
not.
issue.
No.
So what would you say about this section in the Constitution?
I say that there was no need for it to be inserted.
And you believe that the section that deals with freedom of religion, that's fine in
That's
that
fine.
section?
That is fine.
So if SODELPA does come in, there will be no section that SODELPA will try to bring in, which will state that Fiji is a Christian state.
No, we will not say that it's a Christian state.
Thank you very much for clarifying that, Mr. Rabuka, Sitiveni Rabuka, former Prime Minister and leader of SODELPA, who's in studio with us on Straight Talk. Now, we have more questions coming in. Ashish from Raiwasa is asking a question. Ashish, good evening.
Sir, please tell the nation, when was the first instance when you decided to conduct the 1987 coup? What made you do it in the first instance?
What was it?
He said he wants to
Sir,
know.
please tell the nation, when was the first instance when you decided to conduct the 1987 coup? What made you do it in the first instance?
Well, I didn't want to have a sudden change in the way Fiji was governed. I am a true nationalist who really believes very much on the leadership of my chiefs in Fiji, and what happened in 1987 was not what I believe should continue to be the case in the national leadership of Fiji.
That was Mr. Rabuka talking about the 1987 coup. Let's talk about that because there's some text messages coming in about that as well, Mr. Rabuka, in relation to 1987. Safety and security, Mr. Rabuka, is always the top priority for any person, for themselves, for their families. There have been 4 coups in Fiji, 2 in 1987, 1 in 2000, 1 in 2006. 2 coups in 1987. Why did you do that? You had said there was no other way. Was there really no other way?
There was no other way at the time, and I faced the consequences. And the chiefs believed in what I did and forgave me.
The chiefs. You say the chiefs believed in you, so you went to
Believed
the chiefs.
in what I did and supported it.
All the chiefs.
Yes.
And Did the chiefs tell you to do it?
Not the chiefs. There was no chief's resolution for me to do it.
So you decided yourself?
Yes.
And you had the backing of a lot of people?
Not really. I felt that at the time I didn't gauge the feelings of the people. That had to be done after. It was a big risk, but we took it. I took it.
What was the main reason for doing it?
To change the government.
Why?
Because I wanted the old system to continue.
Which old system?
The alliance leadership with the three races making up the alliance party. Continue with that mold.
And of course, with the change in government through elections at the time, you did not agree with who was leading the government, the late Dr. Timothy Bavandra and his team?
Dr. Bavandra was a good man, but he would not have been the executive because he would be led by those that were in the party, just exactly like what we're doing now. We see Bainimarama as the prime minister. The decisions that are carried out are not his.
According to your
According to my thinking, yes.
So who would have been the late Dr. Bavandra supported by or controlled by?
Well, they had
according to your assessment.
They had some good seasoned unionists and some farmers champions. They would have been instrumental in the development of policies for the government.
You didn't like that?
I didn't like the change.
You didn't like the change when the new government came into place?
No.
So you're sitting at the camp, you didn't like the change, and you decided to do that. Then you decided to do it again and made Fiji a republic.
Yes, when we were moving away from what I had initially started in May, I knew they were going to either bring back the old leaders who were not really looking at the interests of the nation, but at themselves. I said, no, this is not the way we're going to go. What I'm doing is for Fiji, the new Fiji, not just for the people who were leading at the time.
There was a lot of targeted violence on the streets. Indo-Fijians were attacked in a number of areas. Many left our shores. What do you have to say about that?
Yes, I'm very sorry about that. I regretted that effect of what I did. That was not to be that was not the aim of the exercise or the coup, the takeover by the military. Then you had those unruly elements took the law into their own hands and had personalized it and made personal attacks on some citizens. Sadly, some of them had to leave, and we still have not really made up the losses in manpower.
How can you change that, knowing that that fear still remains? A lot of people have even spoken about it, the way they were treated at the time. Women even being taken by soldiers, their hair pulled on the streets and taken, and if they were seen doing something on Sunday, they were taken to task for it, and many other things. There's footage of people getting beaten up on the streets. Was it out of control?
It was out of control because I couldn't be everywhere, at every place all the time, and there were like what you have now. There are unruly elements continuing to be dictated by their own personal likes and dislikes. That's why we have the law, and they should have been brought before the law. And some were brought in and charged under the Military Act, those that were involved with civilians had to face the.
How many?
I do not know. I do not know. That for the police and the military were dealt with by the unit commanders.
So it wasn't coordinated to instill fear?
No, it was not.
We have Mr. Sitiveni Rabuka, SODELPA leader, who is in studio with us on Straight Talk. Now, Mr. Rabuka, with that happening at the time, and now you are planning to become Prime Minister of Fiji again, if SODELPA does win, what is the assurance that you can give that we wouldn't have these kinds of situations coming back? And because some people who have, as you said, grew up in that era and have known what had happened at the time and are worried.
I've heard both the Commissioner of Police and the Commander of the Republic of Fiji Military Forces saying that they will be responsible for the maintenance of law and order regardless of who wins the general elections.
What have you learned from it?
Well, I've learned that we go through those periods in our national development. Very few nations in the world did not go through that period, those events in their change in nationhood. India had a non-violent protest, but it was a protest anyway. Most of the countries in the world, in Africa, in Latin America, had to go through those periods before they gained independence, and even after independence, there were jolts of constitutional issues that forced people out onto the streets. We still have ongoing problems in the Latin American area of the world. We still have fightings going on in the Middle East. They're all political. It's all about trying to find the right combination, the right system for people to be able to live together. The ethnic cleansing of the former Soviet Union republics is still ongoing. The majority of the problems we have in the world at the moment, it's about ethnic differences. And we in Fiji can change that. We can change that. We're a small country, so we can slowly evolve into that. When you have, as long as you still have differences and disparities that we have to try and iron out, there will continue to be dissatisfactions.
Mr. Rabuka, just in relation to that, you have also gone out and presented your Mataninga Sao and asked for forgiveness from a number of people. Do you believe that with that you have redeemed yourself?
No, I am obliged. It is something that is required of me. I had the freedom to do it. I wanted to do it. I did it. Whether they forgave me or not, that is their prerogative. They have the right not to forgive. I have the obligation. I'm duty bound to ask for forgiveness because I had hurt them. But they have the right not to forgive.
Now, one of the comments you made was that there were some unruly people at the time who did a lot of bad things. We agree to that, and it's been documented as well. Do you take responsibility for that? And if people are listening out there, what do you have to say to them if they were harmed and wronged in some ways during 87?
It'll have to be a personal thing between the perpetrators of the actions and the victims. And for restorative justice to take its full course, there's got to be a restoration of relationships. And those that suffered losses, got to be something got to be restored to them. There's got to be a lot of crossing over from victims to victors, so-called victors or mental victims to victims, aggressors and the aggrieved. There's a lot of that to be done. And we have come a long way. We've come almost 30 years or 40 years from that time, and we're just beginning to come right at the moment. We have not sorted out our differences, the advantage and the disadvantage, the haves and the have-nots, and we are trying to go too quickly into equality and equal one solution for all.
We can't go too quickly, Mr. Rabuka?
No, we can't. We cannot.
So where should we go slowly?
We should continue to have affirmative action. And
affirmative action for who?
For the disadvantaged.
Right.
All the disadvantaged. No race. All the disadvantaged. Those that are looking for housing must be assisted to have housing. Those that are looking for land must be assisted to have land. And all those things, the accessibility to all those facilities has got to be a function of the government. And my government will do that.
Now, Mr. Rabuka, it's good that you talk about land. We have a lot of idle Itoke land at the moment. What is your plan for that?
What do you call idle land?
There's a lot of land that is not being utilized. And there's no leases issue. There's no agriculture.
Have there been lease applications?
That's what I'm asking you. What is your plan to ensure there's more activity? If you do come into government, do you have a plan?
The old Native Land Trust Act had made allowances for those. Whenever there is a need for someone to lease land, and if it was outside the Matangali plots of the Kanakana, it could be used for that. There are some that are reserved land for their development, for their maintenance and support. Those that were required or needed for other people to use, apart from the Matangali members, or even within the Matangali, if a Matangali member wants to lease Matangali land, it can be de-reserved and they can lease it.
Go through the process.
Yes.
So what is your plan? Of course,
we would like to continue and make available land for people who want to use it.
Make available more land for people to lease and use it.
Yes.
And what to use it for? Do you have a plan on agricultural production to increase agricultural exports? What commodities are you looking at?
We can only produce what is the indigenous crops we have. Even Dalo, some argue it's not an indigenous crop Fiji, but I believe it is. Then it's a staple crop, and we have so many of our own people living overseas, and we can continue to do that. Sugar industry was an introduced industry, although they had sugarcane here before, not on a commercial scale. So those are the things that we can do, and this government has established something that the Native Land Trust Board could have done, and that is the concept of the land bank. The way the Native Land Trust Board and the Native Land Trust Act and the Native Lands Act were set up, it allowed for the acquisition of native land for national development.
Mr. Rabuka, we have a caller from Nambua, Nazim. Good evening, Nazim.
I am interested in SODELPA's foreign policy. If you form government, what would be SODELPA's foreign policy, especially towards China?
We would like to continue the relationship we have with all the countries that we now have relationships with, meaningful relationships on in terms of trade and partnership. With China, the relationship with China has been a long one. We had a relationship with nationalist China, the Kuomintang government headed by Chiang Kai-shek, who fought with the Western powers during the war, and that continued until there was the eclipse between the nationalist Chinese, who were then driven out of mainland China onto Taiwan, and the communist China, or mainland China as we know it now, taking over the communist regime. So It is an old relationship. It started when it was China was the nationalist China. Now with Communist China or the People's Republic of China, we have just continued and changed the name.
So you will continue with the relationship with the
Yes,
People's
it
Republic
is
of China.
Yes.
And after assessment that based on some of the things that you said, investments were linked to the Chinese government, but they are private investors, you are happy with that now? You are comfortable with that because in an earlier interview you said you were worried that it was done by China as a whole, but after you found out that it were private investors, you're more comfortable with that?
We are more comfortable with that, but we still have to spread it out. We can't rely on all our eggs in one basket. At the moment, there's a heavy reliance on one donor, and we need to broaden that out. Particularly those that stood with us during the difficult times in the evolution of the world and politics in the world.
So for donors, you're looking at all the other countries as well?
Only those that we have dealt with and we are comfortable dealing with.
Which countries are those?
Those are Australia, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, United States of America, and Canada. These are countries that we fought with during the First World War and the Second World War.
So maintain links with China. Private investments, Chinese private investment can take place. What is the level of engagement with the Chinese government?
It has to be. The level at the moment is too high only because we have not resumed our normal relationships with our traditional partners. That is a failure of this government. When we had started moving in the right direction, and the 2006 coup happened, it spoiled a lot of the rebuilding process that we had done in the SVT and SDL governments, and put us right back where we had to re-establish our links.
Who did you go to after the 1987 coups, after our traditional partners had said we do not accept that you had conducted a coup?
We went into the region. Our neighbors stood with us, but they were equivalent in scale to Fiji in our export and import. So we had to look further abroad, and we looked north, and we looked to Indonesia and Malaysia.
Did you go to China?
We went to China, and we went to South Korea.
It was fine then?
It was fine. There's no big influx of aid or trade immediately. They've come in after the cold shoulder treatment we got from our closer neighbors, Australia and New Zealand.
So it had to be done?
It had to be done.
Now, what is your stand on the Itoke land lease distribution system? It's equal at the moment?
It's equal at the moment, and it's not equal. It's not equal because the responsibility in the Fijian community is not equal. The chiefs and the Turangan Matagalis and Liulini Tokatokas have a bigger responsibility, which they look after. And because of that, they had to get a bigger apportionment of the land lease. Their houses, when we have visitors coming into the villages, they move out because we accommodate our visitors in our Turangan Matagalis homes, in our Turangan Nyavuza's homes.
So if you do come into government, will you change that?
Yes, it's only a regulation.
So how will you change it?
We go back to the wordings of the Native Lands Act and the Native Lands Trust Act, and also way back the deed of cession, where things had to be done according to our custom and tradition. And custom and traditions include the apportionment of the benefits we got from our natural and tribal resources according to our position and our responsibilities to society.
There's a lot of people, they're saying they're happy with the equal land lease Itoke land lease distribution. They will be unhappy if you change this.
They will be unhappy, but it's the right thing to do.
Right thing to do.
So happiness again, the word you're using.
That's what people are saying.
Yeah, well, it's happiness got nothing to do with it.
That's what people are saying, Mr.
It's about objectivity. What is the object of land lease? land lease and dividing it into equal shares among the Matangali is not really, we are not individually landowners. The Matangali is the landowner. I am a member of the Matangali. I'm not a landowner. The Matangali owns the land. The Matangali allocates.
But your assessment is there shouldn't be equal distribution.
There should not be.
Is that appropriate in this day and age?
Yes.
These things evolve, as you
Yes.
said, evolve. A lot of things evolve for the betterment of all. What do you think?
I believe it should not be.
This
As long
shouldn't
as you have villages, as long as you have villages and Matangalis out there in the rural areas, we must continue to give out the lease money according to our custom and tradition, which is stipulated in the Act.
Is that one of the first things you will do, or one of the first things in the first
Among
year?
the first things we will do is to bring that back.
Now, what is your stand on the Great Council of Chiefs? A lot has been said about that. You're a former chairman of the Great Council of Chiefs. Of course, there's been a lot of talk. SODELPA has said before that the Great Council of Chiefs should come back. What is your stand on that?
It can very quickly come back because it's governed by a regulation of the Fijian Affairs Act, and it can be brought back according to the decision of Cabinet.
Is that one of the first things you'll do in the first year of your governance?
The first 100 days.
First 100 days, you'll bring back the GCC?
Yes.
You will change the lease distribution system?
Yes.
Okay. That's SODELPA leader confirming right here on Straight Talk on some of the changes that will be coming if SODELPA does get into power. We have a question from Avinesh from 8 Miles. Good evening, Avinesh.
Okay, can I ask Mr. Rabuka if he's coming to the power, what guarantee is Indo-Fijian will live in a peacefully? Like under current government, we all races are living in peacefully. So he can give the guarantee?
That guarantee can come from me through the as the next Prime Minister, through my through the commander of the Fiji military forces in his role in assisting the police. That assurance comes from the people themselves when they are mature enough to respect the law of the land, which governs and protects everyone.
Mr. Rabuka, what is your stand on the current voting system? We did talk about it earlier that there was a system in the past, a race-based electoral system, which went up to 20 open seats in the 1997 Constitution and 51 were communal seats. Do you expect to go in that direction to make some changes? You had said that we should not be going too quickly with change, or are you happy with the current system?
The current system is in the Constitution, and so any changes in that will have to be done constitutionally. It's not something that we can just change very quickly. The way we now elect our members of Parliament takes us away from representation. We do not have representatives in the House.
Not the constituency representatives.
No, we don't have representatives.
Because there's only one constituency,
We have
is Fiji.
one constituency, and everybody. So when I'm in the village, I do not know who to go to as my representative in the House.
You can go to anyone.
I can, but I don't. I don't know who is representing me, who understands the problems I have in the Konrove, in Rekinwai. Who knows that we push the bus up to go to my village when it's raining?
Mr. Rabuka, just in relation to that, so now the voting system, do you believe, like we had 71 constituencies in the past with the categorization based on that, that we should go back to that?
I do not have any hard and fast beliefs on that at the moment, but I believe that we should continue to have geographic representation, whether we have race representation as well. we will have to talk about, because we have not really looked at that issue, because we've moved away. We were moving away, and we have suddenly moved totally away from it under this constitution. Whether we are comfortable with this is the second time we're going into elections using the Dihon system of proportionate representation, and using an open list. And so if we find that it's the way to go, well, we continue to do that. And but if we went back into geographic, there will be some communities or geographic areas not happy with the system. So it'll have to be discussed in a big national forum where we look at our constitutional
current constitution,
the current constitution and the electoral system.
You still have to go through parliament and
Yes.
referendum, though.
Yes.
Now, just to you will do that, but what is your assessment, and what are you thinking as a leader of SODELPA, whether you, because you said we have moved too quickly now, and the previous constitution 1997 had selected number of seats based along communal lines. Do you believe that is also an option going forward, and will SODELPA look at something like that?
We will look at something like that. Yes, we will continue to look at something like that. The world is has made allowances. We've come a long way from the days when our islands were settled by newcomers, sort of almost displacing the first settlers.
Who were the newcomers?
The newcomers were anybody who's not indigenous Fijian.
Right.
But we have embraced. We have embraced them. They have embraced us. They've allowed for our peculiarities. They've allowed for our customs and traditions to evolve, and we have allowed for theirs to be part of our national culture. So with that in mind, I believe there is still room for ethnic representation and also geographic representation. How we get to it will have to be dealt with.
How many seats do you think? Right now there's 51 seats in Parliament. How many should be based on racial lines, which is you vote for your own kind?
We can do it there in lower house, or have the ethnic representation in the House of Review, which is the Senate, if that is to come back.
So you're planning to maybe bring back the Senate?
It could, because that will be a House of Review. We can go back into a bicameral parliament. We have a chamber,
a lower house and an upper house.
Yeah, the People's Assembly and the upper house.
Now, when will you start looking at this change for voting and whether Senate should come back if you do get into government?
Once we get into government, we will have a lot of tribunals and summits where we need to continue to relook, reevaluate, review some of the policies and the directions we're taking, and we move on from there. We cannot just totally ignore the past. Even the current government and systems will be the past when we come to November. So we cannot totally discount it. They have been part of what we will be in November. We cannot just forget them. We have to embrace our past, deal with the present, and envision what the future will be like.
So you said looking at ethnic representation and geographical representation. With that in mind, you will have consultations to make those changes. You'll have a 4-year term. When do you expect to make those changes? And if you've set a target that after the 2018 elections, the next election will be under new voting system, if you're allowed to do that?
If we are allowed to do that, but as I said, that involves the Constitution, and the Constitution can only be changed according to the Constitution, unless you find another legislative way or another.
There's no other way.
Well, there is. And I'm not telling you, but there is.
How?
No, I'm not telling you. I said
Well,
that,
it's in the Constitution that there's 75% of people.
a lot of things that are in the Constitution, a lot of things that are not in the Constitution, but are still legal.
Well, the supreme law of the land is the Constitution, and that says any change to the Constitution, you'd require 75% of support in Parliament and 75% of support of the registered voters in the country.
So
that's what I said. There's no other way. That's the only way.
Well, we'll continue to work towards that.
What is another way? You said there's another way that you don't want to tell me.
No. I'm saying that there is already a court ruling that the Constitution of 1997 has not been properly abrogated.
So you will go back and try to...
That can be done through legislation, through the legislature.
You will go back to the courts.
It'll have to be dealt with again by the court.
So that's what you're planning to do. When will you plan to do that?
We have not planned that, but that is an avenue.
Something that we'll be looking at.
Yes.
Now, in relation to another issue, Mr. Rabuka, in relation to civil servants and retirement age, I believe that you have made some announcements about contracts and about retirement age policy. Can you talk a bit about that, about what SODELPA has decided about that?
Well, we would like to reintroduce 60 as a compulsory retiring age. You can have voluntary retirement at 55 to coincide with the FNPF maturity age. But as we all know, and we are beginning to see right now, that people, longevity is increasing. People are living longer. And so why waste that human resource? I'm now 70. I'm over 70. When I was looking towards 70, I felt, it's a long way away. I don't know whether I'll get there. Now that I've got to it, I look back and I'm thankful. There are so many things that have happened. So why waste that great human resource of the people aged between 55 and 60, or even 65, or even 70.
So you're looking at, what's the retirement age you're looking at?
60.
60 retirement age, and when will you change that?
As soon as we come in.
As soon as you come in, the retirement age for civil servants will increase to 60.
Correct.
And civil servants' contracts?
We will do away with the contracts. There will still be a requirement for, there will be a need for contracts. We employed contracts for selected positions when I was in government, and we continue to have that. There are times when you will need to contract in people either locally or from abroad to fill short-term needs.
Mr. Rabuka, we are running out of time with 8:30 our time to finish, but there's a question from Marcy from Sydney. He's asking the question on government debt.
If you make it into Parliament, the question is, are you going, if you need more infrastructural buildings to be built and so forth, will you take more loans out, or will you try to clear off all this debt that Fiji government has already incurred?
Our development, particularly of the infrastructure and capital works, will need to be done on a sustainable basis. We can afford not to have the same rapid rate of development that other countries are having. We can afford to take a slower rate, and what is sustainable as far as our debt levels are concerned. If we go too much into debt, it slows down our ability to develop our own infrastructure. So that is a very good question. Our development will have to be done on a sustainable basis, and sustainability will be determined by our ability to pay off the current debt and also to incur further debts.
Mr. Rabuka, just a question on that in relation to slowing down on, or how you look at things that are sustainable. What kind of things can you slow down as far as development is concerned?
There are certain things that how useful or how more efficient is the big road that costs so much money from the terminal building to Ndenarau.
From Nandi Airport?
From Nandi Airport. How effective is the money that we put in for the Ratumara or King's Road from Namua to the Rewa Bridge? Those are the things that we really need to be looking at.
To slow it down?
Not slow it down, but make sure that the money we spend is put onto that road, and the road specifications need to be looked at. How many of our contractors are audited in the sense that the specification of the material they use for the roads are in accordance with the requirements put down by our engineers?
So you will make a full assessment of that and then decide how much you'll spend on infrastructure?
Yes, I believe we can spend less for better roads as we continue. At the moment, we have a very high number of a vehicle-to-person ratio because it's easier to buy cars, and with a contract system, it's probably the only loan we can take out because of the time of secure employment we have. So those are the things that we really need to look at. I'm not an economist, I'm a leader, and I will get the economists to give me the ideas.
You'll get someone. Who would be that someone?
There are many people in Fiji. There we have academics. We have our own people. We have the brain power within Fiji, the confines of this nation, that can come forward and sit down and brainstorm what we need to have done. And all you need is a political will to go ahead and do it.
So your infrastructure plan will be known after you have those discussions?
No, we continue to have the development that we're doing, but it'll have to be more cost effective in the sense that the quality control is going to be better, and also the sustainability of our debt. We've got to be in a position where we can pay off our debt without hurting ourselves or shooting ourselves in the feet.
SODELPA leader Mr. Sitiveni Rabuka is on Straight Talk tonight, giving a lot of information about what a SODELPA government would be looking at in the first 100 days in office, the changes that he believes should be coming in, where the money should be allocated, how things should be done. He's also spoken a lot about issues like what has been discussed a lot regarding National Bank of Fiji, the 1987 coups. Now, Mr. Rabuka, have you had any talks with other parties on working together?
We initially had talks from October of 2016. I was given the mandate by my management board and general meeting, Special General Assembly, to go ahead and explore ways of cooperating with the other parties. There was no end or closure. There was no doors closing at the time. But suddenly we realized that the other parties were saying, no, we will not, we will field our own candidate. So we took it as, that was as the end of the negotiations. There has been no proper closure of our attempts to work together. But I've heard that the National Federation Party will not consider a coalition. And
did you make the approach?
Yes, we made the approach to everyone. We all spoke.
Why do you think they didn't want to go into that setup?
They looked at their own ability to attract voters. National Federation Party learned a very, very difficult lesson in 1999 when they agreed to coalesce with SBT, which I led.
They didn't win any seats?
They did not win any seats because they were branded as working with a racist in Rabuka. And that was taken up by the Fiji Labour Party at the time, and they said, well, at the time it was okay to call them Indians. Look what the Federation Party is doing to you Indians. It's taking you to the nationalist camp.
You're talking about at the time?
At the time, yes. So, but we've come a long way, I hope, from those times. And
But you, Mr. Rabuka, you are saying now one of your plans is to bring back ethnic and
Yes.
geographical representation.
Yes.
Wouldn't those things flare up again? What happened back then?
no, because we'll be looking at our own representation, ethnic representation and geographic representation. And we can then have the National Federation Party is a multiracial party. The SODELPA is a multiracial party. Fiji First is a multiracial party. So all the parties can be multiracial, pushing their own agenda, political agenda, whole political agenda of the party about integration, about race development and ethnic issues that are specific to an ethnic group, and we go according to those. There'll be a group of multiracial parties. all
Group of
competing.
multiracial parties, but you'll have some ethnic seats.
Yes, yes.
That's your plan, eh? Now, have you had any coalition talks with NFP? You said you've had NFP
We had, but
coalition talks.
not since they made up their mind to run on their
They
own.
closed the door on you?
I believe they did, and we'll wait until they open it, if they ever will.
If you do get into a situation, first of all, how many seats are you looking at?
I'm looking at a straight-out majority right from the word go.
How many seats are you?
28.
28. You're aiming for 28.
Yes.
You believe you have the support to get 28?
Yes.
Now, if you do get 28, so you don't have to go to someone else to ask them if they come with you. But what if you fall short, but you still have enough numbers to go into a coalition with another party? Who will you talk to?
That will be negotiated, and at the moment, I'm keeping the door open to all the parties that want to come and talk to us.
Who's talking?
Sorry?
Who's talking at the moment with you?
None. Nobody.
None.
No.
So doors are all closed.
Clock.
Okay. And you expect the doors to open
My
after the elections?
My doors are open.
Your doors are open?
Yeah.
Their doors are closed?
Theirs are closed.
Can you work with Fiji First?
I can work with Fiji First.
Can you go into a coalition with them if you have?
I can go into a coalition with them.
Your policies do not mix?
Well?
Not at all. It doesn't mix at all.
But I can. I can work with them.
How will you
It's up to them to make that decision that, if they see that they are diametrically opposed, then they will not come in. But I can work with them.
You can work. You can make
I
changes.
will be the senior partner in the group, in the government, in the coalition.
You make the call.
I make the call.
What if you are a junior partner?
I will not
a
go with
minor
them.
partner.
I cannot go with them.
So if you're a minor partner, you don't want to go
No,
with Fiji
no,
First?
we will not.
If you're a minor partner, with which party then you can go in?
I can go with all the other parties except Fiji First.
Except Fiji First?
Correct.
What's the reason?
As you said, we're so different.
So different. Thank you. That is SODELPA leader, Mr. Sitiveni Rabuka on Straight Talk. Mr. Rabuka, thank you very much. There were a lot of issues that came out tonight, and thank you for speaking directly about issues, coming out very clearly on your policies, what your beliefs are, what you stand for, and of course, that is always what we get on Straight Talk. And for those watching on Facebook and those who have been listening on VTFM, we'll have Mr. Rabuka back. He has confirmed. We just have to work out the dates. Mr. Rabuka has confirmed that he's ready to come for Straight Talk, talk back with Professor Biman Prasad, the NFP leader. Straight Talk back with NFP President Mr. Pio Tikunduandua, and a Straight Talk back with Fiji First leader and Prime Minister Vorenge Bainimarama. So we'll set the dates up, and the place to be will be right here. Good evening.
The 2018 general elections. The issues that matter. The people that matter. This is Straight Talk with Vijay Narayan.